Slinging seeds, sliding on into home, throwing heat, buddy, we're going, gone. If you gotta go down, you gotta go down, swinging, slinging seeds. It's America's favorite pastime. Come on, let's have a good time, slinging seeds. Yeah, we're just slinging seeds.
Hey everybody, welcome to another week of Slinging Seeds. I'm your host, Kyle Evans, and across the table from me is my co-host, Doug Adams, and our special guest today is our good friend, Evan Fry. Evan, how's it going tonight?
Going well. How are you guys doing?
We're doing pretty good. It's a pleasure to have you on. Doug, go ahead and give us a little bit
Yeah,
of background on that.
For sure. I've known Evan for, I guess like 13 years now.
Yeah,
Right?
long
Something
time.
like that, long time. So, Evan was a 12U player that I remember. Did a few hitting lessons with him when he was young. And he was phenomenal. He played for multiple teams back then. I remember seeing him for the first time in a championship game of a fall league at Rice Field. I don't remember what team you were playing for at the time, but I had my Canes team with like Caleb and Jacob Cavender,
Yep.
Braylon Masters, all those guys, Mason McElroy. And it was really, really fun. And, it was a good game. And it was fun. I got to see him. And then obviously he went on. He played for the Hamilton Joes, came to us, I think, when he was 14.
Yep.
And then stayed with us through high school. Once he was committed, he ended up playing for the Warhawks, went to Indiana Wesleyan out of high school, then transferred over to NKU. Been through a lot of stories in between those moves, but yeah, no, this is something I've wanted since the beginning. First, we had to obviously get permission for him to be able to do this, and then second, just getting it on the schedule with the baseball season and everything made it really, really tough to get him here. So I'm extremely excited to have Evan on.
That's awesome. So you want to get started with our first question?
Yeah. So, first things first. Obviously, I want to take it back. You played at Franklin High School. I know you take some pride on the run that you and Pierce Bowerly and those guys did back there. Tell us a little bit about what it meant to play at Franklin for Kyle Wainscott and your stories at Franklin in high school.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, playing for Wayne Scott was a blast. Playing alongside guys like Pierce, Gunnar Lakins, Casey Judy. I went there as a junior, obviously, and the culture there was unreal. Wayne Scott came in, I think, two to 3 years before me, completely turned the program around, and everybody was just bought in. And I think that was kind of the culture that I was looking for. Went in, guys expected to win, guys were expected to work hard, utmost level of respect for the coaching staff. Wayne Scott had a lot of really good assistant coaches there, and it was just a great environment to be in.
Yeah, so I mean, my follow-up on that is you mentioned that you had went there your junior year. Tell us a little bit about your transition, how welcoming the community of Franklin was to you, and just kind of how everything went.
Yeah, I mean, so my mom, she's been a teacher at Franklin for a long time, so she was already in the high school, and so I had been around. But I remember going there for the first time, and I actually talked to the principal at high school, and she immediately like welcomed me in and was like, kind of like, "Hey, I made this move happen. Like, I wanted you here. I love your mom." And it just like it's a really good feeling to be wanted. And obviously, the first time I talked to Wayne Scott, like that was a really good conversation to have, and just like the small town feel of Franklin, like you go, especially playing sports, like the whole city kind of they crowd around the sports teams, the football team, the baseball team, and it's just a really, like I said, a really good environment to be in, and it just means a lot just to wear the red and black and go out there and play for your city and play for a bunch of people that just really want to see you succeed. Just a small town feel, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember. I think I was I was a sophomore when I was at Northridge with Venters, and I remember, like, I'm just kind of hitting on the sports piece. They came and they had like for a basketball game they had like the Twin Towers, and then of course they had Luke, and I mean, it was freaking curtains the second those guys walked through the door, and
Yeah.
they brought their own student section with them. So I mean, I could only imagine like playing for Franklin, like what that must mean to any athlete that crosses through that school. So
Yeah,
it's crazy.
fun story about Franklin in that time. Brian Bales. So Brian Bales was the JV basketball coach when I was in high school at Miamisburg.
Mm.
So I learned a lot of stuff from Coach Bales, seeing practice planning and all those things from him and Frank Back. Like,
Yeah.
those are my guys. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
A lot of the stuff that I do now, when you see my practice structure, me having a scheduled out minute by minute, all that came from Coach Bales and Coach Back. Speaking of Franklin basketball, so obviously, that was really really cool, and so obviously, I knew guys over there, and obviously I was excited that he found the right home and all those things, So that was
That's
sweet.
sick. I think Kennard dropped like 50 on us that night too, as a sophomore. So
Pretty good.
Yeah, he was insane.
he was nuts, bro. So nuts.
Yeah. So I guess the next thing I'm going to follow up with is one of my favorite stories that I've told a million players, but I kind of want to say it on the air just once, right? So you were 13 years old. We were playing at River City East or West or Mid America Ball Yard or one of these MVP tournaments early in the year, and there was a guy named Casey Clapp who. Casey was a big guy in our organization. Obviously, Casey was a coach when Evan was coming up as a player and all that stuff. And he had always respected Evan's game from afar.
Yeah.
So he walks into the restaurant area, whatever. We're both waiting to play. And Casey goes, "Hey, introduce me to Evan." And I was like, "Okay." So I just go, "Evan, Casey, Casey, Evan." And Casey said, "Man, I really like watching you play. Are you pitching today?" And Evan didn't break a smirk, not a joke. You realize later it's his sense of humor. But he looks right at Casey and he goes, "I'm Evan Fry. I pitch on Sunday." And it was one of the funniest moments of my life. Casey still brings that up to this day. You know what I mean? And it was that competitive edge that you had. You wanted the ball in the biggest game and all that stuff. I will say of every player I've ever coached over 25 years, almost 25 years, there's never been a guy who rose to the occasion in a big game like you. What do you think gives you the strength and the mental fortitude, right, and all that stuff that when the game's on the line, the ball's in your hand, that you've always been so successful?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, for me, it's just I think, it's the reason why I play the game. It's like, the big situation, the stressful situation. Like a long time ago, I heard somebody told me it was like, you have the opportunity to pitch in big situation or stressful situation. Like people have their trust in you. Like you're not playing for yourself anymore. Like you're playing for the guys behind you, you're playing for the coaches in the dugout. And like that's what I live for. It's like being able to go out there in any situation, big or small. And it's like the game was really about playing for your teammates, playing for your guys, playing for your coaches. And it's like that's what, in a big situation, if something's not going your way, or really any time on the baseball field, like if you need strength, like look to the guys behind you, like look in the dugout, like those are all guys that are surrounded around you that want to see you succeed. And that's one of the biggest things for me there.
If you had any advice for, I mean, some of our younger guys, like our freshman and sophomore, to kind of break that barrier, what would you say to them, just to kind of give them that extra bit of confidence to kind of help them out a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say like work on the mental game. The mental game, and I didn't really ever think about it or really work on it that much till I got to NKU. But like the mental game is a bigger piece than like working on, your fundamentals, your hitting, your pitching and stuff. Like training your mind to, visualize big situations or like understand like what your thought process is going to be when you get into a big situation. Like that's how you build that habit of when you get out there and you get put in that situation, like, hey, this is my thought process, like this is what I'm gonna do. And that's how you avoid negative thoughts creeping in, or anxiety, stuff like that. Like because it's all real. Like the emotions of the game are extremely real, and it's a process for everyone. But especially if you start young in high school, like you really work on the mental game. Like guys like Brian Kane, like there's stuff all over YouTube and the internet that you can find. Like work on the mental game. Like that's going to be your biggest separator. And that's the biggest piece of advice I have for guys like that are going to be put in those situations, and guys that may struggle in those situations, stuff like that.
It's huge. Like have a plan, prepare yourself. So I think I liked it a lot.
Absolutely. I was talking to you, talking to Ben, talking to our former college guys, all the guys you were fortunate enough to be in 22. That is something that you've all came to me and said, this mental game stuff is something that we really need to pass on to the next athletes and all that stuff. So actually, it's really, really exciting. We're working on changing the front area here this fall into a air conditioned room
Yeah,
where we're going to bring in a mental game guy.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's going to be something that we're definitely going to bring to P413 and try to help all of our athletes, because every one of you guys who came back said, hey, this is where we're lacking. This is where we got to get stronger.
Yeah.
I love that too. It's going to be huge for us.
Yeah. So I guess next is, so I mean, I think it's fair to say that, and I've always joked that you and Ben and Mason and Jackson and your team of 22s kind of, this is the house the 22s built. So, and you've always came back and worked with our athletes, guys that are currently here. You know them all, you work with them all. Tell us a little bit about what this program means to you as you've went on and kind of done your own thing outside of it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, being a part of obviously the Canes when I was in there, but now P413, like I made some of my, I think the biggest thing for me is the relationships, right? Relationships with guys like, Doug and Kyle and just my friends, Ben, Mason, Jackson, all these guys, the Cavenders, like the relationships that I've built through this program, like these are lifelong friends, like guys that are going to be at my wedding, coaches that I'll trust forever, always ask advice from, like, and that means a lot to me. Like, I'm a guy that really, like, I run off of relationships and trust, and like those are things that are really important to me. And I think like when I come back in here and I see faces that, like I've been around for years and guys that I trust and know that really care about me and, care about not even just apart from the game of baseball, just me as a person. I think that's the biggest thing for me. And it's like if I can come back and give that to these younger guys in any capacity, like I would love to do that. And that's why I like coming back here and training here.
I think watching you throughout your process of injury and watching you rebuild yourself was probably one of the most emotional things I think I've watched. Because you just come in here and Evan's in here in the morning, just absolutely just going to town in the weight room. So I mean, I definitely wanted to like tell you how much like that meant to all of us to watch you go through that and to rebuild yourself. Tell us a little bit about that time period and how that went for you.
Yeah, it was obviously extremely emotional. Like it's the most important thing that you've had in your life and what you schedule all of your stuff around and just everything that you work for in your life, like it gets taken from you in an instant. You're out for a year, and the hardest part is just mentally like being able to grasp like who am I without the game of baseball. And for me, like I had a rough 4 or 5 months coming out of surgery, and I was just lost. I didn't know who I was. Going through the rehab process, everything was going okay, but it was just like I wasn't out there on the mound. Like I wasn't playing. I felt like I wasn't, useful to my team. And then that was the biggest thing for me was is like I started to really like dive into like my identity and separating that from the game of baseball. And that was when I was at Indiana Wesleyan, and we had a guy on staff that was strictly for that. And obviously there was a lot of faith involved in that, and like that's when I really like came to know like Christ, and I built my relationship with Christ, and that's where I found like my true identity in, and it just separated me from it. And it was like, I can work hard for something bigger than myself. Um, and obviously you always work hard for your teammates and stuff, but really having like finding that purpose, finding your identity, like who you are. And like that was the biggest thing for me because after month 7, like I thought that I was going to be on the mound at month 9, like had a big like setback, and it took me 16 months to get back on the mound. And through every single one of those trials and like, getting, re-injured, I guess, or things not going the way I wanted, it was like, I truly felt like it was part of my plan to be playing the game of baseball again. And like I approached every single thing that I did with that mentality. And it was like good or bad, I'm gonna come back the next day with a good mindset and just ready to go to work.
Yeah, my follow-up question was going to be, yeah, like, do you think that that propelled you and kind of slingshot you in as soon as you were like in the clear to get back after it? Like, do you think that that really helped set you up for success where you are now?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, I mean, I see the game in a whole different light now. And like that's one thing that I tell people also that really helped me with my mental game stuff was like not being able to play. Um, it's when you get to go back to the game, and you get to step on the mound, feel like the feeling of adrenaline, like getting the ball coming out of the pen, whatever it is, stepping in the box, like that's the best feeling in the world. And it's like that's something that you worked for and that no one can take from you, regardless of the results. And like that's your motivation, like that's your fuel. Like whatever you're going through, whether it's mentally, physically, injuries, all that stuff, like those are the feelings that you chase, and like that's what you're working hard for.
So obviously, you were with us from 14 to 17 with the 22 class. It was a pretty good team.
Special group.
a very special group. I think 25 went to college out of that class between the two teams. This year, first year, we've actually topped it with 30
Yeah.
in the 25 class.
Awesome.
So we did have 3 teams, so we'll say that. But so a little bit about that 22 team, you know what I mean, with Theo Winings, Jack Duncan, Mason McElroy, Ben Zink, Talon Borders, Brady Davis, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can go on forever. Peyton Castley, right?
Abs.
All those guys, right? The Cavender boys. Tell us a little bit about that 22 group and what that meant to you. You hit on it a little bit earlier about the relationships, but tell us what that process was like grinding with those guys and then kind of seeing where they all are today.
Yeah, I mean, it was some of the most fun I've ever had in my life, because those guys, like, I mean, they wanted to work, and like I love being around those type of guys, and whether it was being at the top V stuff at GAC with Juan, like we'd spend hours in the weight room over there, and it was so fun, man. Like those guys, I mean, you stepped on the field with them, and it was like, and you were going to war. Like everybody wanted to win, everybody was competitive. Um, I don't really maybe other than like the 15U group. We had some, obviously that was different, but
Yeah.
like everybody, there was no bad vibes, like no bad feelings. Like everybody had a role, and like everybody wanted to play that role to win. And going out there with, like you said, like guys like Theo and Mason and Brady, like just guys that were going to go out there and play the game the right way. And that's one thing that I love, man, is just going out there with guys that are going to hold you accountable, like not as much in a verbal way, but like with their actions. Like guys that are going to go out there and play hard, like they're going to play the right way and just play to win, like every single day. And I think that really, like, it helped me grow, like as a player. Um, and it made me realize like the importance of like the team aspect of baseball. And obviously, you guys harped on it a lot as a coaching staff too, but just really being out there and like feeling it. Like there's a feeling. It's a lot different when you have 9 individuals out there playing than 9 guys playing as one. And just that feeling of playing as a team and like playing for each other, like that's a great feeling. And I think that like with the 22 class, like that's, no matter who we put on the field, like you knew that you were getting that. Like guys that just wanted to go out there and play for the guy next to them.
I really like the way that you guys all talk about each other because you can hear it, and whether it's Jacob Cavender or Ben Zink or Jackson or you, like you guys all have the same vibe. It's so harmonious, you know what I mean? And like sometimes like Ben and or not Ben, but Doug and Juan will share those videos from the old facility where you guys are going nuts after a velo check, and
Yeah.
like it's awesome, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we get that here and there, you know what I mean, with the kids we have now, but I mean seeing you guys is just like a different feeling. That brings us back to kind of like the high school stuff. So, really, I would like to kind of get into like your high school like experience in recruiting, and how that felt to get recruited, and kind of how the experience went in itself. So, you can just kind of give us an overview.
Yeah. So my freshman year, I wasn't very good. I mean, I was all right, but the velo wasn't there. And then COVID happened my sophomore year, and that's kind of really when I started to just focus in on, getting better. And I started to fall in love with it, and that's when the velo started to jump a little bit. And then that summer, like, I think I was like mid to high 80s a little bit, and I started to get some attention, and that was a really good feeling. And then after that, kind of just fell off a little bit. But I think the biggest thing in recruiting for me was just like it's really cool to be wanted, like I said earlier, because it's a testament to your own hard work, and that's the motivation for the younger guys that I like to give is like, like you talk about the recruiting process and you ask questions about the recruiting process, but like 98% of that is the work that you're putting in,
Right.
and it's like if you want to receive that phone call or you want to get that email back, like that's the long hours, like the early mornings, like that's where you earn that. Um, but I mean, I had a really good recruiting process with Indiana Wesleyan. I actually got recruited by Ian McDonald when he was at Charleston, and then he moved to Indiana Wesleyan. And just from like the 4 or 5 phone calls I had with him at Charleston, like I knew like that was a guy that I wanted to play for. Um, and I had obviously other phone calls and stuff that went well, but like there was just something about Ian that I just really enjoyed. So I followed him to Indiana Wesleyan, and then getting on campus there, it was like I was told I was playing NAIA baseball, but I came in with a freshman class that had 8 arms that were throwing 90 in NAIA baseball. So it was like this is awesome. Like I'm around guys that are just like better than me, just as good as me. Like I'm gonna have to show up and compete every single day. Like nothing given, everything earned. Really good coaching staff. and just a bunch of guys. Same thing there, just really good experience there. But yeah, I would say like the biggest thing in the recruiting process for me is like you're gonna get out of it the work that you put in. Um, so whatever you're looking for in that process, like put in that work. If you want that phone call, you know, whatever you have to do to get that. And I mean, with the support staff that we have here with all you guys, like you can tell guys exactly what they need to do to get recruited by wherever they're trying to go, and whether that's realistic or not. And if it is, like you guys are going to tell them what they need to do to get better. And it's like that's the work that you got to put in. Um, and then yeah, that's probably it on that.
So one of the things I do want to ask a follow up on this is, and I've said this to you directly. This is nothing I haven't said to you directly or to other people behind your back. If I could put your work ethic in basically any player's body that I've ever coached, I would love to see what they can accomplish. Because I truly believe of all the players I've been around, I've never seen somebody get absolutely everything that's in them out the way you do. And it's something I've always respected. And I mean, and guys would gravitate to you when you were in high school because they're like, and I would always use you as an example, which probably wasn't fair to you as a 16, 17-year-old. But I mean, you see what Evan's doing. Don't tell me you want it when you're watching Evan and you're not doing the same. I always respected that at a high level. But the reason I ask this is because even now, like obviously, I know you're working 3 jobs right now in the summertime, trying to do what you got to do, but you're still in here basically every day. I still see you coming in here and putting up real weight, all that stuff. Tell me a little bit about the 12-month weightlifting, what you do in season, right? Why you're actually pitching. Because for me at this point, with where we are as a program, that is our biggest hiccup. Guys don't want to lift during the season. They don't, and then they start losing velocity. Then a college coach sees them and they say, "Well, I thought this guy was 86. Now he's 82."
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about kind of your in-season plan and that stuff, because I'd really like our guys to hear it.
Yeah. You simply put, you have to lift in season. If you want a healthy body and you want a strong body and you want your body to perform at the highest level, like you have to be able to tap into the power that you're producing in the off season. And that's a huge thing that I've worked on at both of my schools. That I mean, we lift in season 3 to 4 times. We're lifting on the road, like this year at NKU, like we're going on the road, like we're lifting in their weight room. And it's like you have to. It's almost like how would you expect to say like if it was hitting. And my thing is like if you never stepped in a batting cage and you were just expected to go out and perform on the weekends for a tournament or twice a week during a game, but you never stepped in a batting cage and took hacks. At month 2, right, you're not going to be as good at the plate. And when you think about it pitching wise, like people don't think about the weight room that way. But like that's what the weight room is. You can only throw so much. And it's like if you want to perform at the level that you did in the off season, you have to be as strong and you have to be as mobile and you have to be as explosive during the season. And there's obviously a safe way to do that, and like that's where guys like Juan come in. Like Juan will give you exactly what you need to do in the season. Like you just have to do it. And it's the same thing that I always come back to is like I don't want to lift after, a long day of a game, or I don't want to lift the next day when my body's hurting. But like what I really want to do is go out there the next weekend and perform at the highest level. So like that's what like that has to be your motivator. It's like if you don't want to get in the weight room, then when you go out on Friday to pitch, like you can't expect that you're going to perform at your highest level because you didn't do what you were supposed to do in preparation. And preparation is everything. And especially for a pitcher in velocity, like if you want to perform at a high level every single weekend, then you have to lift and you have to, maintain your mobility and you have to get your sprint work in. Like these are all things that are musts. Like it's not just, oh, I'm putting in extra work. It's not extra work. Like it's maintenance. Like that's stuff that you have to do.
You brought up Juan and you brought up top velocity. You're one of our 90-mile-per-hour testimonials here in the building. First banner I saw. So tell us a little bit about top velocity, your relationship with Juan, and what that program kind of means to you in a nutshell.
I mean, I could go on forever about top velocity, but I mean, Juan, like I tell these people all the time when they ask me about top velocity, like you will not find another pitching coach or another trainer like Juan. Like that guy is more dedicated to like the kids that he coaches than anyone I've seen. I mean, he has I don't know how many clients. And I mean, I was working today looking through his iPad and I scrolled through like 300 names. And if I go through there, close my eyes and pick one of them, like he can tell you the backstory, the family, like the player, like what they're working on. and it's like it's a testament to Juan's character. And I've been through everything with Juan, like especially when we first met. Like I butted heads with Juan, thought he was wrong all the time. Like, we're cussing each other out at 6 in the morning before he brings his Fenwick guys in. Like, I mean, we're in there just going at it, butting heads, and he just stayed with me the whole time, and he saw the best in me, and then I finally started to gain some trust in him, and it's been one of the strongest relationships like I've ever built. And there was a time in high school where like I was even thinking about just not playing baseball anymore, and like Juan helped me find my love for the game again, and like I mean just the the relationship that I have with Juan is just something that it's so special to me, and just Top Velocity as a program, like aside from all the different pitching philosophies and everything, like when you come in here, like Juan's gonna expect you to work hard, and he's gonna push you um, just to get the best out of you and for you to perform your highest. And the coaches that he brings on, we're gonna do the same, and that's one thing that I really like about Top Velocity. And um, just, I mean, Juan and I could go on forever about Juan, but yeah, I hold that's a special place in my heart. That relationship is, and everything that he's done for me.
Yeah, and I've seen Juan lose it on a few clients here and there, and they're going at it with each other. I've seen him do it with Dylan. It's like
It's just passion.
it's passion, man.
Mhm.
Like, you don't normally a coach would just shut the doors on you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of guys out there that would just
He
shut the
can't.
doors
Yeah,
on.
Juan
He
can't
can't do
quit
that.
anybody.
No.
I mean, it goes back to I remember when Ian was at Charleston, Juan had a relationship with Ian, and he's the one that tipped Ian off to Evan. And then obviously from there, Ian and I's relationship grew, and we had a lot of conversations about Evan as he ended up at Indiana Wesleyan and all that. But Juan was the guy that made first contact there and said, "I think this is your guy, Ian." You know what I mean? And he always had Evan's back. And obviously, you ended up at Indiana Wesleyan, and you guys had a phenomenal first year. One of the things in the first year, which is probably one of my daughter's favorite stories. We're at a restaurant. I forget what it's called. It's up at Austin Landing. It's a pizza joint, Firehouse or something. Maybe it's a steak restaurant. I don't know. But you're playing Georgia Gwinnett in one of your first weekends, right? And you come in relief and you absolutely dominate and you get a win against Georgia Gwinnett, right? Big power in NAIA, all that stuff with Sheets and all those guys down there.
Riz.
And I am in a restaurant screaming at my phone. And then they're like, okay, we're going to go get ice cream. And I remember I don't go into the ice cream joint because I'm sitting outside and you go back out for another inning and just yelling at the phone the entire time. And Jamie's making fun of me and the girls all making fun of me because it was like a family dinner night and it turned into Evan's outing
Yeah.
because you went a long time. So it was obviously there was a lot of cool moments like that it was fun to watch you from afar at Indiana Wesleyan. But I think the second half of the year, it was fair to say you weren't 100%.
No.
Right. And you and I would have some conversations about how you were feeling and this and that. And I know one game you've shared with me that in the World Series, you were not close to 100%, right? You were injured, not hurt. You were injured.
Yeah.
And you took the ball and went out there. Tell us a little bit about that experience where you're not healthy, you're trying to hold it back. You don't want people to know, right? Because you want to go out there and deliver for your team in that moment. Because you've always been so selfless and it's always been about everybody else. So tell us a little bit how you mentally get prepared for a game that you're not healthy for, and then you went out and pitched really, really well in the World Series.
Yeah, it was it was game 3. It was the elimination game of the tournament, and it was a 8 a.m. game, game 3 of the tournament, and we show up to the field at like 5:45 for batting practice, and I kind of go and stand off, and I'm just kind of talking to myself, and I make the decision that like no matter what I feel, like I'm gonna go out there and give absolutely 100% of whatever I have left, because I knew that that was probably going to be the last outing of the year, and whatever happened after that happened. So I made the decision to myself in my head that that was it, and I was going to go out there and I was going to leave it all on the field. I mean, and I wanted our team to advance. And I get out there and I'm throwing before the game, and I start throwing and I can't get my arm above my head. So I warmed up sidearm, and I told my catcher comes up to me, he's like, what are you doing? Like, you all right? And I'm like, not even close. I was like, but once I get on that mound, I'll be fine. And obviously, shout out to him as well, just a great guy. But and I go out there and I ride the adrenaline and give it absolutely everything I have. And then we're at the restaurant after the game eating, celebrating and stuff. I walk outside in the parking lot, call my mom. Hey mom, I got to go to the doctor as soon as I get home. And she's like, okay. And and that was it. But it was, I mean, the mindset behind that is like you have fought you fight every single game all year. You go through a gruesome fall, and it's for that moment right there. And you have 30 other guys looking at you, and they have trust in you, and they want you to succeed, and they want you to have the ball in the elimination game of your season. And for me, it was like I didn't care how much pain I was in. Like I was gonna go give it everything I had for them. And I went out there and left my shoulder on that field, literally. Like I gave it everything I had. Everything that I had left, I left it out there. And that's yeah, and that's yeah, that was it there.
Honor. So obviously that moment birthed the injury, right? We get through it. We talked about the injury process, how you got through it. And then we and find ourselves at NKU. Tell us a little bit about your recruiting process and that. I kind of remember the initial post and output, but kind of give us a little bit of an overview of how that all went.
Yeah, so I mean, full transparency, like after my freshman year, I got into contact with Steve Dinneman, and I had some conversations with him and stuff, but I knew in the back of my head that none of that could happen because I knew that obviously I had a good feeling I was injured, so I told him that I was just gonna go back and do what I could there, and then I got injured, and then I ended up redshirting that year, so I came back out in the summer, and I just sent him a text, and I was like, hey, this is what's going on. And Steve, he got back to me and he said, just keep me updated through the process. Let me know what's going on. And then finally, I got to a point where I was healthy. And I actually remember him coming in here to watch me. So he lives around here. So he came over here, watched me throw. And then that's when I kind of realized, like, hey, I'm back. I'm healthy. Like, let's do this. And that's when I kind of posted my stuff out there. And I think it was only like a week that I was, technically in the portal and stuff. But it was wild. Just going through that whole process again, but like times about four,
Right.
because the whole game of college baseball it's all based around experience and innings played in the game now, and I had that. I threw 7 innings my freshman year, and that was probably the biggest thing I had going for me at the time. Obviously coming off injury, but that whole process was a lot. It's I think the biggest thing that that I was thinking about in that process was, where do I feel like I'm wanted, and where do I feel like is a good fit for me and my character, like what culture do I want to buy into? And it's like I think those are the most important questions to ask, and it's like, and if I had to give like the biggest piece of advice for me is talk to a player on the team, because they're going to shoot you straight. Talk to multiple players. And I think that, if you in the recruiting process, like if you go to getting recruited by a school with a really good coach, like they're gonna offer you the chance to talk to guys. They're gonna give you some players' numbers, be like, hey, call this guy, ask him questions, right? And like take that opportunity. Call him and ask the questions that you need to ask. What's most important to you? Whether that's what are the guys looking like at your spot, or whether it's what's the culture like can I develop here, what's the team morale like those are the most important questions to ask in that process. And finding a place that obviously, and I get it, you want to develop as a baseball player, you want to continue to move up in levels, like where are you going to develop as a young man, where are you going to develop into the man that you're going to be the rest of your life? And I think that's a huge thing for me, is like I I want to get as good as I can at baseball, but like my biggest goal in life is I want to be a dad, I want to be a mentor, I want to be a leader, and I want to carry myself in a way that like others respect it. I want to be a good person, and like find a home where you can grow as a person and grow in baseball. That'd be my biggest piece of advice there.
It's huge.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that Ben talked about, because he did an episode, obviously he was in the portal and now he's ended up at Ashland, which I thought was a really, really good fit for him.
Yeah.
He cares a lot about winning, right? That's always first on his list. I want to go to a program that wins at a high level. And he talked about some of the differences between being recruited in high school, how it used to be, and what it is now in the portal. Tell us a little bit about the differences you noticed between the way recruiting was to the way the recruiting is now.
Yeah. So obviously in high school, like getting recruited out of high school, it's a lot more of, at least when I was in high school, it was like more of like kind of like the showcase numbers. Like what can you put up in a batting cage? Like what can you do, velocity wise on the mound, stuff like that. like that was kind of the biggest thing as far as getting recruited in high school was how do I get coaches out to see me? Well, you got to put up these numbers. And that's, the level of coach that is going to come to see you is really going to base on that. And I'm sure it's pretty similar still now.
Yeah, like projectability.
Yeah,
Stuff.
projectability, stuff like that. And then there's a ton of uncertainty in not knowing in high school, like not knowing what the college game is like. And that's the scariest part is like, like, am I going to go there and am I going to be able to show up and work and like be able to work with these guys at this level? And am I going to be able to fit in? And like, those are all like, it's really scary. There's a lot of uncertainty there. But, once you get into the portal, it's like, you have a solid base of like, I know what this is going to be like. Obviously, it's a little different from place to place, but like, I've experienced the college level, I've experienced the college schedule, all that type of stuff, and you can really kind of focus in on what it is that you want, like winning, whether it's a culture thing, where do you want to end, like where you want to end up. It's not as much about trying to find a place that you think that you can fit in with like level wise and stuff like that, because when you enter the portal, like like wherever you are at, whether you're going up, you're making a lateral move, or you're looking for somewhere to play, like the level, relatively where you want to end up.
Right.
So it's not as much about that. It's more about, like those things like, culture and winning, those little things like that, not little things, huge things, but it's more of those details that, you can really focus in on and ask good questions about, and you have better questions to ask because you've experienced college baseball.
Yeah, so we have some other guys that are in the portal that were with us in high school, right? There's a couple of them left that are still kind of going through the process. We're working really hard to get to the situation. I guess my question to you would be, when you're going through that, who do you lean on? Who do you rely on? All those things. Like, what are those conversations like? How do you know who's in your circle that you want to have those conversations with?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think it goes back to the relationships that you made, in high school, and then playing summer baseball or playing with your high school team. Like those are going to be the firmest ones that you can find, right? Those are going to be the guys that are a solid base, that you can always come back to, get advice from, and that are never going to say a bad word about you, right? Because the reality of it in college is like if you're leaving a school and it's for whatever reason, like you don't know most of the time what a coach is going to say on the phone, right? Because you can perceive your relationship with a coach and what you think it is, but when he gets on the phone with another coach, it might just be strictly as what he sees as a player, and it might not be exactly, you know, what you would want a coach to say about you. So it's like the tough questions that you need to ask and the advice that you need to get and the people that you want pushing you out, right? Those are going to be the guys that are in your circle, and those are going to be coaches like Doug and Kyle and guys like and just like Jackson. I've talked to Jackson a couple times now since he's been in the portal, and like I try to be as honest and transparent with him as I can. Just answer his questions as bestly as I can because I've been through the process, stuff like that. Guys like Hayden Bush that works out here, like I've talked to him multiple times about it, like, and those guys are going to be more than willing to help you any way they can, talk to you, and like those are the guys that you really lean on in that time.
100%. I think it's kind of fun watching you on the way. You and I were road tripping to Indy this past week,
Yeah, you're
and
in the car.
just seeing the network. Man, I mean, I wasn't allowed to talk the whole time. I was on the phone, so.
Yeah.
But no, just watching you like network and talk to coaches and talk to your players and guys that you haven't coached in years, but still are there for. I think you're right. Keeping those relationships is highly important.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the fact that a lot of them still call me means a lot to me. I'm not going to say it doesn't.
Right.
I value these relationships. I mean, the baseball's fun. It's cool. I like competing with them, but I'm a relationship guy. Love first, teach second. I've said that 8 million times. They've heard that comment 8 million times, and I try to live that. I'm not always the best reflection of who you should be as a person. I'm very competitive, and I go off that deep end sometimes, but I think every player I've been around knows that I love them dearly. And I will always have their back no matter what.
So, since you got through the portal and everything, well, technically, were you in the portal or were you just?
No, NAI,
That's what I'm
there's
saying.
no portal.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. There is
true.
no portal because
There's
it's
no,
like NCAA.
yeah.
but
Yeah,
technically,
because to be in the transfer portal, you have to be in the NCAA.
Yeah.
Anyway, leaving the NAIA school like IWU, and then obviously going to the NCAA, stepping foot on a Division I field for NKU. Tell us like your total experience within that. It was kind of cool being able to see you like link up with Jackson and link up with Ben here and there. But just kind of tell us a little bit about the experience.
Yeah, I mean, I was extremely blessed. I mean, I ended up at a really, really good place. Um, NKU, like I mean, the first guy I'll talk about it's Dizzy Payton. I mean, there's not a coach that you can find that cares more about his players, I think, at the Division I level than Dizzy Payton. And I think that man, I mean, he embodies especially the love first, teach second, but he cares more about your development as a person, I think, than probably even your development as a player. Like he wants to see you, grow into the man that you're going to be, carry yourself well. Like like when we start practice, like he's talking about the way that we want to represent ourselves, the way that we walk into restaurants wearing, NKU gear, stuff like that. Like, you know, doing community service, like holding, like having, groups, accountability groups, stuff like that. Like Dizzy's just really, really good about that stuff. And really just, honing in on growing each individual on the team. Like what can he do, to help each individual guy, whether you play or not, or whether you're a manager, bullpen catcher, doesn't matter. Like he wants to build a strong relationship with you and be a resource for you to grow as a person, and obviously as a baseball player, but as a person, in any aspect, like in any way he can help possible. And then just the whole just the culture there. It's a big transfer program, so we bring in like 15 to 20 transfers every year. But within 4 weeks of being there, it's like you've known the guys your whole life. Like they do a great job of the guys that were there just building relationships, and then obviously like team building stuff. Like just Steve made us do like speed dating on the field one morning at like 8, and it was like it's like
That sounds like a Steve thing.
why am I out here doing this? But like that's the stuff that like it matters. Like building relationships. Like I mean, I was still asking guys questions about our speed dates like 4 or 5 months later. Like,
Right.
and it's just like stuff like that, man. Like, they really care about the culture there, and they really care about what something Dizzy always says is like he wants people to feel the way we play, and just playing hard, and that's the biggest thing for him is just playing the game hard, and I love that, and I love playing the game hard, playing the game the right way, and regardless of the results, you can walk away from that field knowing that like you carried yourself the right way and you gave it absolutely everything you had, win or lose, and just overall like my experience at NKU just this past year, I mean it was awesome. I mean, they gave me the opportunity to come in, or I earned some trust with the coaching staff and got some opportunities to pitch and even some big opportunities, and it was just super cool. And it was just a really good experience overall.
Yeah,
That's
one of the
awesome.
really cool things with me was I went down to Alabama and they were playing Bellarmine. So I went to the game because we had Carson Brower playing for Bellarmine and then
Right.
Evan was on NKU. In pregame, Steve walked over and I'm like picking his brain, how's it going, this and that, really checking up on you. But also asking him about his family, right? I really like Steve.
Love
And it
Steve.
was before you were starting to get a bunch of innings, but you could already tell that the trust was building. He was talking about how good you've been in practice and all these things, and it was really cool to hear on my end, right? You know what I mean? And then obviously you ended up developing a pretty good role on the team and throwing a lot of important innings. Um, so it was really, really good to see. Steve is a great resource for me. Like some of the base running stuff that we do, he gave me some of his charts this year.
Yeah.
So we use them at Dayton Christian to try to organize, be a little more organized with how we do our charting and stuff. And pretty much every chart we use at Dayton Christian, with the exception of one that I got from Earlham, is Steve's stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With our momentum leads and our stolen base grid with colors and all that stuff.
Yep.
We basically just flat stole all that from Steve. And I can't say stole because he gave it to me, but a really, really good dude. Really cool experience in the Horizon League tournament, watching you close the game. You know what I mean? Toward the end of the tournament to get you guys back to Wright State, right?
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about what that experience was like to be able to close out that game.
Yeah, that was awesome. I mean, like I kind of touched on earlier about that World Series game. It's like you're going into the game, and like the season it's up to you. It's in your hands, especially going into the ninth inning of that game. I'm warming up on the, I get told I'm going to warm up in the pen, and I'm like, here we go. like this is it. Like no matter what emotions I'm feeling right now or anything, like I'm gonna go out there and like I'm gonna compete and I'm gonna get us to another game. And it's like that's like those are the moments you live for. And it's like that's what was going through my mind. You know, I'm getting up there, I get the call to go in the game, and it's like I'm giving it everything I absolutely have. And I know these guys behind me. I know these seniors that may never play the game again. Like I want them to get another game. And this coaching staff and these guys that have worked so hard all year, like I'm not gonna let this season end on and with the ball in my hands. Like I gotta win this game for these guys. And that was the thought process there.
That's awesome. I love Denman too.
Good dude, man.
Great dude.
So we end every episode with the same question. We've asked it to everybody except Sam Faulkner because he doesn't care about baseball. Right? Is if there's one thing you could change about the game that we all love in any way to improve it, what would it be?
Yeah, so I would say, and this might be more like towards the college game right now, but I wish that money, like the money aspect, wasn't as important as it is right now. Just with all the NIL stuff and all that stuff going on, like I feel like it's so much of an influence now that like some of those relationships that you build and stuff and some of those like learning experiences that you have and even the stuff with the portal right now, like I think that your total experience as a player in the game of baseball really shapes who you end up being as a person. And I think just the whole like how much money is involved and how easy it is to kind of maybe not earn it or not have a good experience and just kind of get out. Like obviously I'm a huge fan of moving up and stuff like that, but I just think that how involved everything is with money, and just how easy it is to kind of just a get out of jail free card and not use everything as a learning experience and like use that to light the fire. And then obviously with the whole money thing, it's just like you have a really good, say like a really really good player, and it's like you want to play with that guy 1 or 2 more years, like it's one of your best friends, but like he knows he can go make a lot of money somewhere else, and it's like he's gone.
Yeah.
And like obviously I get it 100%, but like that's one thing that like I wish it was more just like building relationships, and like more about like caring about the guys around you and the coaching staff that you trust as opposed to just money. I think that's one thing that I would change about the game.
I like that a lot. Saban talked a lot about on the NIL stuff. He said, what is the point of us going out there and winning all these national championships and doing what we do and there be no, now I got to offer a kid a lot of money. You know what I mean? Not the program that we've built, not the success we've had, but how much we're shelling out. So to hear you say that is kind of like self-alignment, you know what I mean? It's why I like the JUCO game a lot. I like watching those kids compete. But unfortunately, it's all the time we have tonight. I just wanted to thank you, Evan, for a wonderful episode. Absolutely great. Cannot wait to drop this one. And if you guys want to see more stuff like this, make sure you follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. And to never miss a notification on our social media accounts, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All right, boys.
Yep, thank you guys so much.
It's America's favorite pastime. Come on, let's have a good time. Slinging seeds. Yeah, we're just slinging seeds.